Do you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the main screen. There are actually two other tools, the string viewer and face viewer, but let's go through this first. There are 4 tabs: fonts, clusters, words, and numbers. You can load fonts in one of 2 ways. You can, if you don't have any font, you want to just play around and look at what Hibizcus is all about. You can also load the system fonts. Just choose any language. Let's say you want to choose, I don't think Balinese has a system font yet. Let's say you select Devanagari, you'll load the Devanagari system font for you. And then you can play around with it, look at the cluster data, look at words, random words, look at the languages. Unfortunately, I think the system font is not localized for Marathi. And then look at numbers and all that. But, let's look at some real fonts, So I'm going to choose some. You can also drag and drop fonts. So let me choose I'm going to show you something that I've been working on, that I'm still working on. It's not even done yet. Still Tamil. Okay. Right. So you can see the Latin capital is not even done yet. So I've got my lowercase done. I've got my other consonants done. Even the numbers not done yet. Now the first tab, the fonts tab. The reason I have this is just to look. I mean, of course, any tool will show you all the glyphs that are in the font. I use OTM. I use glyphs. I also have Font Lab. All these tools will do that. But the one thing that I use this for most often is when I ship my fonts or when I ship updates to my fonts to my customers, I need to show them, I need to also give them a diff report to show them what has changed in the font. Okay, so the first step is just to do a comparison. So I'm going to, let's say this is Kikli. I'm going to make one change in the font. Okay. All right, so I'm going to make one change, which I already have done that. So this is like too much. So I'm going to put it back to 60. And then there is Z that doesn't have a glyph now. So I put it in the background. And I'm going to put it back to the foreground. Likewise, the regular. All right, save this. And I'm going to export. So I made 2 changes. And see, when I'm monitoring a font, it will actually show me when the font is updated. It'll actually show me a refresh icon, so I can reload the font. But this font is the earlier export, so I'm going to do a comparison. I'm going to pull the font that I just generated. Why is that? No. Okay. Went elsewhere. Okay, I know what happened. It went elsewhere. All right, so I'm going to drag. This is the one. I can drag. If I drag and drop the second font, it'll automatically detect that as a comparison font and puts that below the main font, right? And you can see that there are 2 differences. Why are there 2 Z's? Okay, you can see the difference. Remember that I edited the Z glyph. And if I don't want to see everything else, I only want to see the glyphs that has changed. I can click show diffs only, it shows me this. So I can just take a screenshot of this and send it to my customers, so they know that these are the stuff that have changed. Or even if I don't do that, if they have Hibizcus, they can actually view it themselves and see what has changed. Because some of the vendors that I supply fonts to, they are very picky about spacing, side bearings, and all that stuff. So unless it is extremely necessary, you're not allowed to go change all that. even if it means that it looks better, because you already have a shipping version, you don't want to introduce reflows and stuff. So that's two. You can, it does, you can also double click on that and get a bigger view, and it tells you what has changed. Underneath you see glyph mismatch. Now, if you change side bearings, it also say that left side bearing has changed or right side bearing has changed. Then you can know that, and the customer can also know what has changed. Okay, you can also skip through and flip through the glyphs and see all the other glyphs there. All right, so I think that's basically the feature I use most in the fonts view to compare. Now, the comparison function cuts across all the tabs. You can compare in clusters, you can compare in words, you can compare in numbers. But comparison slows down the whole process, So, and I'm actually sharing screen, so that actually slows down the entire thing. But you get the idea. In every cell that you see in this main window, you can run through comparisons. For example, if there is a rule change, you can look at words. I'll come back to that later. If there's a rule change, wait, let me look at faster. Select Tamil script, and then look at words. You can see, the words getting affected by the rule, and the comparison view will be able to point out what has changed. Okay, so that's fonts view. I'm going to take off the comparison. You already understand what it is, so so we can go quickly. I'll just remove the comparison part. Now, clusters is the most interesting part, or one of the most interesting part of Hibiscus. This is what I actually built first. All of these are tools that are built over probably about 2 or 3 decades. They were originally written in Objective-C with lots of very low-level code, lots of shoestring chewing gum type of setup. But I've cleaned up all that and made this open source, so you will also be able to enjoy the benefits I had. Now, Tamil is quite simple. You don't have that many combinations. So let me go choose something else. Let me kill this and load probably a Devanagari font. It shows, right? I've got Noda Sans Devanagari loaded. If I look at clusters, it actually understands what I need to have in a Devanagari font. See, most of the tools that you use, like OTM or similar open type tools, they tell you what the font has. They tell you the rules that are defined in the font. They'll show you all the G sub tables. They'll show you all the G pos tables. But they don't tell you what is required and what is missing. You can't. For that, you need to have language and script data. And that's plenty of that in Hibiscus. And in fact, that is the approach. Hibiscus is not intended to show you what the font has. Instead, it allows you to check if the font has everything that it should have. That's the difference. So you can actually look at bubbles. This will actually show you if you have defined all the characters that are required according to the Unicode standard. So if all the, in other tools, let's say if you forget to add one glyph, some of these are like hardly used, right? And some of them won't define it. Some tools will, most of the tools won't tell you that it's missing. But here you can see that's an empty space or a not def squares, and then you know that that glyph is missing. Likewise, you can look at all the conjuncts. Some of these are not used or rarely used, and a lot of people omit them. But Hibiscus will tell you that they are missing. If you want this to be a completely Unicode compliant font, then you need to have that. Particularly vendors, they can actually use this to inspect if the font that is delivered to them has all the code points that are required, right? The third one is this is a long process. This actually shows you all the possible two-part conjuncts in the font, and you can see if they are actually shaping correctly, right? So this is Noda Sans Devanagari. Of course, they have taken care of all that possible combinations. You can see that there are 2,500 possible two-part combination. Some of it may not be used at all, but you want to also render, those correctly according to the script grammar, if you want to. So this actually helps you check all the two-part conjuncts. Now, the next one is, if you don't want to do all this, if you just want to quickly do a Devanagari font and make it out, get it out for people to use, then you can use the next option, which is common two-part conjuncts. Now, I wrote a script I looked at, I think over, I don't know, a couple of million words from the Wikipedia archives. I extracted all those words and then wrote a script to look at all the two-part conjuncts that are there and group them according to usage count, and then pick the top 1,000 odd commonly used two-part conjuncts. So if you define these set of conjuncts in your, in your rules or in your drawing, if you define all these conjuncts in a Devanagari font, you have a fairly good font that actually works across all the use cases, either for Devanagari or Marathi or the common languages. That's this. Those data are already included in Devanagari, and you can go and edit them. I'll show you that later. The third one is common three-part conjuncts. I didn't want to do all possible three-part conjuncts because that'll be like phenomenal, and your machine will probably start smoking. So I just looked again, just like how I searched for the two-part conjuncts, I looked for three-part ones, and these are the ones, 2,400 odd commonly used ones. If you have defined your two parts correctly, and if you have defined your half forms correctly, you mostly won't have to do anything here. Most of it is like assembled, but this tool helps you verify if they're actually assembled correctly. Now, one nice thing I like to use this tool is, you don't know how many of these are single glyphs, how many of these are glyphs that are assembled together. You can actually turn on color. That will actually show you different glyphs in different color, right? So if there's a three-part conjunct with three different components, you can see that there are actually 4 glyphs here, including the virama, right? Some of it may have 2. I don't think there are three-part conjuncts as a single glyphs. My fonts will have, some of my fonts will have, like you can see Iksha and Ya, they are, Tra and Ya, they are like two-part plus a full consonant. Two-part half form plus a full consonant. So that's three-part. And also, anything more than 3, I group into common multi-part conjuncts. Again, if you have defined your half forms and your pre-composed two-part conjuncts correctly, this should be automatic, but you can use this tab to verify. There are about 900 odd such combinations, and you can check them here. Now, if there are, I have a category for other bases, just in case you want to check a particular combination of a particular string or particular character combination in all your fonts, you can add them here. You can bring up the editor, type it in Devanagari or whatever language that you are editing, save it, and it will appear as part of the standard, as part of the cluster data. Now, let me go back to consonants. I'm going to turn off color. Now, I also want to look at consonants and see how they behave when I add matras to them, right? So I can add, the A matra, or the A matra, the E matra, right? The long E matra. Right? And then not only the matras, I also want to look at the swaras, like the anuswara, the chandra bindu, and you look at the behavior of all that. Now, if there's something that looks suspicious, you want to blow it up, you can double click on it and bring it up in a big screen. And if it is in color, let me put it done. If I click color, it actually shows you even in the zoomed version as color, right? And you can see if this overlap is intended, that's fine. But if that's not intended, you can see that this is a single glyph, so which means it is intended. If you're using positioning for that, then it tells you that there's a problem there, and you can go back to your font design tools to fix that. Okay. So that now this is one of the most valuable pieces in the glyphs in the Hibizcus suite, and I use this quite a lot to proof my fonts, before I ship them. I have included support for all the Indian languages, whatever that I can get data for. And I can also choose, like, for example, if I look at just consonants without any signs, and go back to vowels, look at consonants, take off the color, take off the signs. Right, these are just plain consonants. This is a default language. If I choose, say, Marathi, for example, I can see the L and the Sh changing. All right, so when the language tag is applied, you can see the appropriate glyphs are chosen. The other thing is, in the fonts tab, I'm still trying to find out how I can move it in, because there's no way of defining a sidebar in Swift UI in the current Swift UI. So we have to go back to the fonts table to change it. Now, I have chosen Cortex, but I can also choose a different shaper, like half bus, right? And if you want to see the combination, if you want to see the difference between the rendering, or difference in rendering between half bus and Cortex, you can load the same font twice. So the main font and the comparison font can be the same font, but you choose a different shaper for both. So that'll do a bit by bit, or rather, it doesn't do a pixel by pixel comparison. I had, my earlier version of the tool did do pixel by pixel comparison, but it was taking far too long, and it was not worth it. So what I do is I look at the glyph IDs, the organization of the glyph IDs, and also look at the glyph data of each glyph, the actual outline data of each glyph, and then do the comparison. That's good enough, I think, for our purpose. So here is another very good use case where you can actually compare the output of two different shapers for the same font, right? So that's clusters, and then you can stop me anytime, Kalapi, if you want. It's a dialogue that's going on.
So, no, I'll let you. I'm just noting down questions so we can discuss them.
Okay, cool. Okay, next we have strings. Again, for like Devanagari, I don't know if I have for Bodo. I don't. But I have Hindi. I have Konkani. I don't. I have Marathi, definitely. I have Nepali, definitely, and I have Sanskrit. So these are word lists. There are about 100,000 words for each language bundled into Hibizcus. You can edit them. You can add more. You can delete. You can actually put your custom word lists. You can do all of that. But generally, I mean, these are words taken from Wikipedia archives, sorted according to frequency of use, and I picked the 100,000 most frequently used words in each language. All right, so you can, again, here too, if you had selected color in the previous tab, you can also see color here, but you see color better in another tool that I'll talk to you about shortly. Now, you can also search for words if you want to see a particular combination of your glyphs, a particular word. You got all kinds of search options here. It's actually a regular expression search. So if you understand that, so you can search for, let's say if I want to type, let me bring up my data. I want a cur, I want a per, and I want, say, a j. All right, and I want letters, words that contain any letter in the string. Then you see all these words. Right, these words will contain either any one of the three letters will be present in this word list. Any Unicode in screen that's because the matra can be treated as a different Unicode character. So if I put, let's say, a per and e matra, and then I can see e matras appearing in contain any Unicode, any one of the Unicode character. Only Unicode characters, which means words that only has any of these Unicode characters and nothing else, right? So these are all options, you know, you can actually use them to play around to check all the various combinations of string. The last tab, again, I've already told you about different languages. The last tab is numbers. You can pick single-digit number, two-digit numbers. You know, you want to check spacing. Mostly it's for spacing, appearing correctly. If you choose 6, you can also turn on and off the luck and the 1,000 marks. Why I kept that is in Malaysia, we don't use luck and 1,000. I mean, 1,000 markers, yes, we do, but we don't do luck here. We do million. I can also check ASCII digits. If you have defined ASCII digits in your font, you can also check them here. So that's numbers. Now let me go to the next tool, which is the string viewer, which is another. I think that was the first tool I wrote probably about 10 or 15 years ago, but it's all rewritten in Swift. I've got a lot more new features that I'm going to show you. So let's say I want to inspect this string, and I want to look at every component that makes up this string, and see if it is actually ordered correctly. So I can check that and bring up string viewer. There's a button on top and bring up string viewer. Can you see that? Okay, so that's I can also enlarge it. So that's my you can see that the names of the glyphs are shown below. So that's the order in which they are appearing. So I've got Ari vowel sign Deva, Kadeva, and Kadeva and Kadeva. I can also turn on the matrices to see if I can turn off my comparison font and to see if they're sitting on the matrix properly. I can also edit the string. Let's say, I don't know how you spell your name. I'm not very good at, is that a double P or single P? Is that correct? I don't know. Let's assume it's correct. Oh, right, okay. That one. Okay, so, and this is in the default language. And if I want to see this in Marathi, then I get a different la already, all right? I have been getting requests to also, in fact, I also have that in my wish list to have a side panel where I can also add features. I want to turn on alternate forms or stylistic sets, or optional contextual alternates, and all that are things that are in the works. But if you like it, if you want such things, I would welcome you to go to my GitHub page for Hibizcus and put them in the issue, and that will help me prioritize things that I want to do for the next version. Now I can also, let's say if I have another letter K and say I have a Chandra Bindu, I can look at anchor points, and it even shows you all the anchor points that are defined in the font. This actually, I needed this more for my AAT work because it was so tedious to debug Kirk's code. But I managed to also find out how to get these anchor points for OpenType. So the tool works across both OpenType and AAT. So if you're writing AAT piece, you use them in the same way, and shows you the bugs exactly the same way it does on both platforms. All right. So if you see a darker white, which means there is a match, there's a match between the anchor points of the Chandra Bindu and the curve. All right. What else can I show you here? Of course, if I have a comparison font, it's even nicer. I don't have something that has a difference, but let's see. I bring up the sans Devanagari. You see that the color has changed. It's green, which shows that the glyphs from the first font and the second font has a 1-to-1 match. If there is a difference, let's say you're updating your font and if you're fixing a bug, then the red one will show you the buggy version and the green one will show you the fixed version. And then you can take a screenshot of that and send it to your customers saying that that bug has been fixed. It's so easy. You don't have to write reports and do things like that. I can also show bounding boxes. Whatever information that I can track, I can just show it up here, see it in one go. Okay, the next one is a bit more advanced. This is for really advanced users, that if you want to actually trace the shaping process of the string, right? This is a trace viewer. Unfortunately, I can't trace you with Cortex. Cortex doesn't allow that, doesn't have the API for me to pull the outcome of each single shaping step. But I can do that with half-bus, which I think is good enough, because if you don't know, I do some funny things. I'll show you an example here, which I'm still trying to fix. This is not Devanagari, this is Gurmukhi. Let me type something Gurmukhi. Right? That's your name in Gurmukhi, all right? And this one is my new font, and it's still not complete, it's still being worked out. You see that actually on either end of a word, there'll be this little blob, but it's not shaping correctly in half-pass. I can also look at full trace to see every step. If I don't have full trace, it only shows the step that has affected the outcome. Otherwise, it will skip that. It will not show that step. I can also show clusters to see what half-bus sees as the cluster group. So these are the glyphs that belong to a cluster. Every cluster is in a different color. If I want, I can also see the glyph names. Now, if I take this text and see it in string, I can see the exact thing in string viewer by clicking here. So it loads the font and everything for me. No, it doesn't. There's a bug. It should load the font for me. Never mind, it can be easily fixed. So in my Cortex, if I select Cortex, you can see that the two on either side of my word, that the two blobs are sitting in correctly. But if I choose half-bus, something is missing, all right? So I don't know if it's a bug with half-bus or it's a bug in my font. So that's, thing for me to previously it's a nightmare to figure this out, to go and check in Cortex and then go and check in half-bus, which app uses Cortex, which app uses half-bus, and it becomes a nightmare. But here, at least you know that there is an issue in Cortex, and then you can figure this out. In the coming version, there's also a request that I've received. It shows you the G-sub lookups, but it doesn't show which feature the lookup is coming from. Right? You have to go back to your source and look at it, and that becomes a problem. But I'm trying to figure out. I'm actually still in discussions with Bhd and the half-bus people to see how I can get that information out. Then it becomes easier for you to figure out and debug. And then you can find out if the problem actually is in half-bus or is in your font. Cortex seems to be a bit more lenient, accommodates a lot more things. This blob thing doesn't work in Windows at all. It doesn't do RCalc. It uses required contextual linkages, but it doesn't. There's one more thing that Windows will not support. Let me bring up a new string viewer. Okay, it's another Tamil font that I'm working on. Where is it? Okay. Okay, I'm going to type something in Tamil. All right, and I put a full stop. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger so you can see. Can you see that? Now this is still in development, so spacing, etc. are not working. And then I'm going to type it in English. See the kerning is not done yet. And then put a full stop. Can you see the two different full stops?
Yeah.
See this it's the same character. It's the same period Unicode character. The first one, the 163 red is a period, and 164 is period 001. Right? This one has a dimple. This one doesn't, because the Tamil version has a dimple in all of the letters. Can you see this little dimples? But adding this dimples in English didn't work very well. So I removed them. Though I have a matching Latin, but it doesn't carry the dimple with it. So when I put a dimpled period in an undimpled English or Latin typeface, it didn't look right. So I have a contextual period. Likewise, the dot above the I and the dot and the pulli above the ra, there are two different shapes, two different styles. This one doesn't have a dimple anymore. Now, this works very well in Cortex. Works okay in half-bass, but it doesn't work on direct write windows. Unfortunately, my tool doesn't give you comparison with direct write or world ready. That probably will be in a Windows version. I don't know which year that's going to come. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover, and then open it up for questions. First, tell me what you think.
Oh, it's for some reason, the previous year and this year has been kind of a year of testers, with so many different testers coming out, which have which solve the problem of the person who's created the tester. But I see that in your case, it has a more kind of, so my problem generally with tools for typeface design was that all of it in the UFO approach was going towards a user agnostic approach, where the tool makes no makes no assumptions of what the user wants. And that ends up with, of course, a bare bone software where you kind of develop the tooling or you develop the context with which to tool, but it creates a huge gap for people who are not capable of making that tooling to be able to use all of the tooling successfully. And then the other spectrum of it is the glyphs bit, which spoon feeds everything to you, including character sets and everything. But then you don't think about character sets. You don't think about, things like that. So it's very, unless you have kind of active experience in a type foundry where these questions are posed to you every day, day in and day out, you don't really think about them. And I think this tool in that way then creates, even if you're working on your own, using, those multiple choice thing, it makes you think, oh, I didn't think about this combination. This was possible. Think about this. So that's really good. When I was working at Daltonmark in 2014, Mark Foley and I created a web scraper for the Wikipedia, Devanagari Wikipedia, to do the conjunct stuff. It's open source. I'll put the link in the chat so you can have a look at it. The problem we faced with this was that there is a bias for loan words, because a lot of Latin words are transliterated. You see a lot of conjuncts that otherwise would never appear in normal language, like regular language, but they're there because they are transliterating maybe a African word or a proper nouns. So there are lots of proper nouns. And that is kind of a double-edged sword. It's great because going forward, and the more international we get, we will have to support these things, because you want to ideally see a world where in publication design you use the widest vocabulary possible within Devanagari or within Gujarati or within Tamil to be able to keep the content contemporary. And for that purpose, character sets for Indic typefaces is a complex problem to solve, because it's ever evolving. It's as it evolves with a language. Tamil maybe not as much, because it's a much more pragmatic script. Doesn't have the crazy amount of content.
Aspirates,
so that's been that's great. Is there a way for I know the tool is open source, so ideally all of these corpus libraries can be configured before build. But is there a way to kind of, from the app itself, import kind of a text dump?
Yeah, good. That's a good suggestion. I have that in my wish list. But just like you drag and drop fonts, I want you to be able to just drag and drop word list. If you drop a text file, with one line on top that says it's a word list, and then the tool actually parses it and use it as a word corpus. Yeah, I have that in
There's
my
a
list.
great Kannada dictionary that was just released that is now open source. I can share. And they have the entire corpus is open source, so that is something maybe you can have a look at for Kannada.
Wonderful.
As well. Let me just quickly find it. Not going to waste a lot of your time. I'll find it and I'll put it in chat. So that's one thing. For the numeral test is great, and I know you said that in the text string you want to create like a drawer where you can switch on, switch off features. I think for numerals that may be also interesting, because you want to maybe test tabular figures, you want to test proportional figures.
Yeah.
So I guess if you engineer it for the text string itself, it works for the numeral testing context as well. So that's good. I written somewhere, can the size be changed? But I don't know what I was referring to.
Which charge? Which size is that?
It should come to me in a bit. How important is AAT development? Of course, this has nothing to do with your tester, but this idea, of course, Apple is always going to use it because it's a grandfathered technology that has to support every successive iteration of the iOS of the OSs. But do you see a trend where they are moving towards OpenType, or are they solving more complex problems with AAT, like things like Burmese and Nastaliq and things like that?
No, they're moving completely to OpenType. That's what I see. Yeah. I think Apple's supporting OpenType a lot better than even Windows.
I'm sure. I mean, the stuff like those Gurmukhi finials not working is ridiculous. Would that work with Fina or Init? Have you tried if it?
No. Fina or Init. See, Init is only called in Bengali.
Okay.
And Fina, Init, both of them are only called in languages that need them.
Right.
Like
they're
Arabic,
not script agnostic. Okay.
No, they're not.
That's
no, it'll work. My Anne font has the same feature, right? So it works on HelpBus, works on Cortex, but it'll not work on Windows. I mean, I'm following up with Microsoft with file bugs.
I mean, I guess the silver lining is the fact that the tools that designer use don't really use DirectWrite anymore. So if you're using Adobe and you're going to compose a page of text and things like that, or even on Windows, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that's good. I think it's only for Word and stuff like that.
Word,
but
Office.
I don't think you would use any of these very specialized fun features there.
That's true. That's the safety. That's the safety net. People won't be using this on Word documents, but it will be nice. And as a font designer and developer, you feel incomplete that it's not working on one very commonly used app in the world. I think Office is probably used by a lot more people than all the other tools put together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the thing. Yeah.
No, I love the tool. Thank you so much for making it available. I definitely love the diff, because our workflow for the longest time was TTX dump, then manually compare the TTX dump in a diff in a text.
No, tell me what's working, what's not. I mean, use it, and then you can provide feedback in the GitHub source. What's working, what's not working, and I want to keep improving.
Absolutely. I will. Thank you so much. It was excellent.
Welcome. You're most welcome. So you sent me the link for the Kannada dictionary.
Oh yeah.
Sorry?
Let me send it to you.
Later, no hurry, no rush. You can send it to me later.
No, let me just find it for you. 1 second.
Okay.
It was sponsored by Zerodha, which is kind of a tech startup here. It's like a fintech startup.
Okay.
It was very interesting that they did it, and it's kind of one person's work, their entire life's work. They kind of compiled this thing together. Here it is.
Ah, cool.
So if you go onto that website, it's just basically a very simple search. But I think when you look at the about link, which is at the bottom, there should be a link to the GitHub repository. And there are 150,000 Kannada words.
Wonderful.
And it has its English counterpart. So there are lots of interesting things that can be done with the corpus.
Right.
They're doing another thing. They're doing the English Malayalam dictionary as well and Malayalam corpus as well. So that I think this is the link for that. And you can maybe keep an eye on that for when they make it available.
Oh, there's only one problem. If I use this data, then I also need to make my tool licensed. I need to license it under ODC, ODBL license. I don't know if that will work.
All of it, or just your other like similar data types?
You publicly use any adapted version of the database or works produced from an adapted database. You must offer that adapted database under ODBL.
Yeah, so not the tool, just the similar.
Okay, I will check with them. Yeah, but it's a good, it's a good point. Yeah.
All right, it was great seeing you.
Thanks. Yeah, you.
Have you complete? Are you done with Reading? Or you still need to make one more?
I finished early last year.
Oh, okay.
Or end of 2019. Yeah, end of 2019.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. How did you find the entire course? Especially.
No, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly. I mean, it's just I was doing part time. I couldn't afford a lot of time. But it's enjoyable. Yeah, 2 years. I finished I was like struggling to finish my dissertation. Did you get a chance to see? I can send you a copy of my dissertation if you want.
That would be great.
I did it on Grantha.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah.
We recently had a very. Yeah, I'll send you my email. I'll just email you. I have your email.
Okay, sure.
We had a very weird, very strange request from a strange. I mean, strange is maybe a weird word, but interesting request from a newspaper in Tamil Nadu, where they want to use Grantha fillers in Tamil for new learners of the language. So Tamil omits a lot of Sanskrit consonants, right? As they call it. So they want to incorporate the Sanskrit consonants from Grantha into Tamil. So they ideally wanted a font that used the Tamil code page. They used mixed code pages, and the problem is that cross cluster.
You can't do shaping. Yeah.
So that was something that was not working out. So they've
right.
Yeah. So
well, Grantha is already in my macOS font. If my macOS Tamil font already has Grantha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for the workshop.
Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On behalf of Typography, for any very thankful for you on an interesting workshop. We would also like to thanks to participants. You can now move on to the next session. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.